All right, welcome to Mazecast episode 23, I believe it is. And this marks the middle point in our run through the rooms of Maze. This is the 23rd episode, is that right?
That's correct.
And this will be the 23rd room that we've covered. So after this, we've got 22 rooms left to do. After this, we're halfway through it. I don't know whether it's actually going to come out to be 22 more episodes. It's probably going to be less because I figure we're probably going to combine some of those rooms if there's some kind of a theme that combines them, or if we don't have too much to say. But we might do some episodes that don't strictly cover a room. Who knows? We've somehow made it this far doing exactly 23 episodes for 23 rooms. We've got Andrew with us here tonight, and Alex. And Alex is going to be presenting room 22 for us tonight. Room,
right, Vince.
Room 22, notable for being the one room that White Raven did not feel that he had a solid solution for when he put up the Abyss and started.
Well, this is the one. I didn't realize which one it was. That's interesting.
This was the one. So go ahead, Alex. Take it away.
So I guess I'll work backwards. I'll talk about what's most recently being talked about. So the seat there in the middle, it looks a lot like a stop sign. And then you got the trident, which is all reminiscent of the color red. So I'm sort of just really making short out a long explanation, but that's pretty much.
Do you want to screen share that?
Yeah, sure. There we go. And then, so recently, I stumbled across that color version that's been going around the internet. I can't remember if it was connected to a video game or like an online archive or something like that, but somebody went to the trouble of colorizing the maze. And in room 22, all the curtains and stuff were red. So I was talking to Vince about that the other day. I'm not convinced that, that they knew that that was a connection. But in any case, let's go through this room. So the signs have been talked about by, I guess, Vincent, White Raven, and Beals, talking about scales, tail, women's jewelry when deciphered, which is what it says backwards on the sign, gives you her ring, or herring, and then H plus 2 O's, which is presumably water. These are all things that are associated with fish, or more specifically red herrings. So this gives you a little clue that you're in a trap room and that you might not find it so easy to get out of there. What else? People have talked about the direction of the trident, like that it's pointing away or is it pointing towards 38? No one really knows. One of the nicer solutions that I thought was elegant in this one was 3 plus 8. So the 3 tongs of the trident plus the 8 sides of the stop sign gives you 38. But again, you're already in the trap, and this is about as good as it gets in the trap as far as getting close to 24. I had a crazy theory about the signs, but I'm not going to get into it for this episode.
Oh, you're not going to... That's
kidding me? Are you kidding me, Alex?
No. This is not new. This is something that's been debunked a long time ago. You want me to go into it?
You're talking about precipitation, right?
Yes, precipitation. So I had a theory where the first letter of each sign, they basically spell out stop. How I got O out of women's jewelry, I don't know. I can't remember that one.
Because it's a ring.
I thought it was something other than a penny.
Right, because it's a ring. So you have the scales, the tail, the ring, and precipitation, which those letters spell out stop. I thought that was cute, but I don't know. You guys didn't like it, but whatever. I put it out there.
I think that's a really interesting solution, regardless of whether it can ever be accepted by anyone or not. I mean, it seems, on the one hand, it seems so unlikely that he would stack that solution on top of the other solution and expect anyone to get stop out of it. You pretty much have to have been looking for stop to call that precipitation on the end. On the other hand, it just fits so well. you know, we've got the stop sign in the room. We've got this focus on red. You've got 4 signs that really do seem to go S, T, O, and then P if you make the allowance for precipitation. But that's not really that crazy if you've got H2O going downward, you know? It's I think it's kind of like
the day than you did last time we talked about this.
what's that?
I said you seem more convinced this time around.
Well, I'm not at all convinced that it was intended. I just think it's a really neat discovery. I think it's kind of like, you remember in Room 23 when I talked about that bear false witness thing, about how the 8th commandment deals with thou shalt not bear false witness, and 23 references back to Room 42 where you've got the false bear, and how that seemed to be this deliberate connection between bearing false witness and the false bear. And I don't think at all that was, or at least I think it's pretty questionable whether that was any kind of an intended connection. But to me, it's like such an interesting connection. I think this is the same way, where I'm not convinced that it was intended to be there, but it sure solidly seems to be there when you put it together, you know?
Yeah, it's not super far-fetched, you know? It's still sort of in the realm of some reason.
It's real interesting. I mean, you have to get the other interpretation first before you can get that one, because you have to get that woman's jewelry means her ring, herring, before you can say it's a ring, therefore it's an O. So it has to stack on top of that one. But even so, I mean, that's still kind of ties together the red that you want to get out of the room with the herring that you get out of the room. But I've kind of interrupted you now. I'm kind of cutting to the chase because I don't think you'd even gotten to discussing the red parts of the room yet.
No, yeah, no worries. The only other thing that sort of I want to mention is I think it was Thale Crater who mentioned this, and this is not a solution or anything. This is just something to ponder about, which is the combination of the shapes of the doors. They sort of look like people, and especially the middle one. And he mentioned that there's a mustache in the middle of the head, and I can sort of see. I've always sort of seen that, but I never sort of tied that into anything. I could never get a eureka out of that thing. But then he said something interesting, which was, if indeed there are these supposed exits out of the trap back to 1, that the chandelier could very well easily hide the number 1 if it were indeed behind there. Obviously, I don't buy into that. I just think it's another cool.
Was that Thale Kreider who said that? I thought it was somebody else. Was that Thale?
A guy named Fidelio posted an elaborate theory about this, and he had some interesting stuff to back it up, such as the fact that O-N-E appears starting from the center bottom and moving upward in the woman's jewelry sign. We get 1 that way. So there were some interesting tidbits that he found that he himself admitted were sort of just circumstantial evidence. But I think it was Fidelio who really sort of tied together that whole central 1 door theory.
I do think the doorways, the weird shape there at the top, kind of look like 3s on either side and then an 8 if you put them together.
Yeah.
I think if 38 were like unanimously considered the correct to go through from here, we would probably find that sufficiently convincing that we would say, yep, that's what's going on with those shapes, that they're 3s and 8s. But it's still pretty hotly contested whether this room points to any other room, or if there's any kind of a door indicator here or in 43 or 38.
Yeah, I mean, 3 is also. I think Thale also mentioned. I don't know if it was Thale actually, but maybe it was Gentile. But in any case, he said one of them said that the even if it doesn't look like a person, that top part, it sort of looks like a 3, like not like either like both the chandelier, but also the doorway looks like a 3. I can pull it up here.
Oh yeah, I can see the 3 on there.
You know what I mean? But it's also a sort of an 8 if you then you put it together. I think that was what Vince was talking about. Maybe not. Vince, are you talking about the chandelier or the doors? Way.
I was talking about the doors themselves. looking.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I sort of see one too in the chandelier if you turn it sideways. Like the
Yeah,
mustache is a 3, and then you could sort of get a bunch of 8s out of if you look to the left if you're looking sideways. Or sorry, to the right. Anyway, back to you guys.
although, and that's kind of what I take to be the red herring aspect of the room that it's telling you about. I think this room reasonably solidly points to 38. I think the combination of the trident and the octagonal furniture rug there in the middle would probably be considered a pretty reasonable clue elsewhere, especially where the shadow meets the rug down there below and really makes it one piece, you know. I think that makes a really compelling 3-8. And the doorways make a pretty good 3-8, and the trident points at the door, the 38. But going towards 38 is actually taking you closer to 24. I think that's the red herring aspect of the room that it's warning you about.
Oh, you know what I just realized?
What's
So
that?
I've always thought that the peg in the middle, like in the sofa, it looks like a pawn. I just realized that there's 8 pawns when you start off in chess.
Huh.
Across.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's,
the first to point out that pawn similarity, are you? I think other people have mentioned that as well. I kind of like that. That's cool.
8 pawns. And I don't. Did you? I still don't think. Did we get to pointing out how the room points towards the red?
Let me just say something about the pawn. The chandelier looks like a king's crown that's being lowered onto the pawn. It looks like a chess king's crown.
A king's crown or a queen's crown?
Yeah, you gotta get queened. You can't get kinged.
Either one.
A pawn becomes a queen when it moves 8 spaces. Whoa!
Oh no! Oh my god! That's funny. I just see the rope coming slowly down and the crown being lowered onto the pawn's neck.
That's not totally ridiculous either. If you're thinking of that as a pawn, which is capable of being crowned essentially, turned into a queen. And tops of queens, that actually, if you look at a chess set, that's not far off from what you would see atop a queen in a chess set.
Not at all.
That's what I was. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That's it.
The only problem is you're in the trap right now.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's not about escape necessarily. I think it's just reinforcing that being a pawn, you know, for whatever meaning we can read into that.
Hmm.
I mean, I was kind of kidding about it moves 8 spaces to become a queen because I don't think that's really a sensible way to clue the number 8 again in here. But
I think it would only move 7 spaces anyway, wouldn't it? Because
oh yeah, you're right. It starts. You'd have to count the space it starts on to say that it moves 8. Well, it moves to the 8th space.
There we go. All right. Fine.
We can adapt to circumstances here.
You were
Yeah.
going to say about the red stuff, Alex?
No, go ahead.
Not me. I don't know exactly how people cue the red.
I don't exactly remember it, to be honest. The only ones that I remember was the Red Devils, because it's talking about the theatrical backdrop.
Yeah, I think there are potentially 3 things that suggest red in the room. The curtains, I mean, they specifically talk about, it says it's a gaudy room that reminded me of a theatrical backdrop, suggesting that those are like theater curtains over the doors. Theater curtains are traditionally red. You've got the octagonal shape in the center of the room that's suggestive of a stop sign, which would conventionally be red, well, which is red, and they make reference to the group stopping in this room essentially, where they say one could spend quite some time here, which I guess reinforces the idea of it being a stop sign. And then we've got the trident in the middle, which if you call it a trident, it doesn't seem there any reason why it would be red. If you call it a pitchfork, then you could say, oh yes, the devil's pitchfork, so that would be red as well. Although I guess notably, I've supported that before, but notably, it's not shaded in like the curtains and the rug, the other things that we expect to be red, which may count against the idea that it's supposed to be the same color that they are. You know? I don't know.
Maybe that's being too cautious. I think that's probably.
Anyway, it's a possibility that those three things. And there's another thing that I don't remember whether I've ever said it before, but I thought it before, where on the herring sign itself, where it's just letters written out, so you have to read it. So essentially, you've read herring by reading the sign woman's jewelry. You see what I mean? The sign that clues herring, you are reading it. It has to be read.
You've read it. Oh, no.
Yeah, R-E-A-D, red herring.
All right.
That's the grand finale on the clues.
Good night, everybody. So those are the indications in the room of red to go along with the herring that's implied by the four signs.
Well, I don't know. There's a clue for yellow also. So I'm a little confused here.
For yellow?
The clue for yellow is that if you read the woman's jewelry sign, the first thing you'll say is yeller.
Pretty good.
You have to stop there though, because then
No,
you'll get into trouble if you keep trying to read it beyond there.
Yeah. Well,
is there any particular reason you can think of that women's jewelry is spelled upwards as opposed to down?
not that I can think of. I mean, except to make it less obvious, which I think could be sufficient reason in itself. Just that if it were forward and down, then it would be pretty easy to read. I think this is just there to confound people, however briefly. But there could be more to it than that. Are there any? I know there are languages that are read right to left. Are there languages that are read bottom to top?
I don't know of any.
Japanese, old Japanese.
It's read bottom to top, and it's.
Yeah, they don't do it anymore, but like for the purposes of the internet. But I've seen scriptures and stuff, or scrolls on the walls and whatnot, and it goes downwards.
I thought those are read top to bottom, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're saying.
Oh, you're saying bottom to top? No, not that I know of.
Yeah, no, not that I know of either. As a linguist, I've never heard of one like that.
Is Hebrew read bottom to top because it came off scrolls? So as they read it as it scrolled out.
Good question.
Am I making that up? This is. We've obviously done our research before this episode. Thale Kreider is going to be impressed this time. He's not going to insult our preparation.
No,
he's very much not the level of forethought here.
He's going to patronizingly tell you that scrolls are read sideways, not up and down, Vince.
I don't know whether that's... Well, whatever.
Who cares?
Things happen in the middle of an episode. We can't always be prepared. So anyway, we've got some indications of red combining with herring, and that's it as far as solutions we've really got for this room. I don't know. What do you think is going on with the 38 stuff? I mean, I think that it's cluing the 38, but it's telling you that's a red herring. Do you think that's what's going on, or do you think...
Recap what it is that you see queuing 38 other than the spade-shaped door frames, which I got that, but I missed what other things you think queue 38 here.
The trident combined with the octagon that it's sitting on, especially if you look at the shadow of the trident, how it combines with the rug on the floor, it really seems to make one figure, which the head of the trident very much looks like a 3, apart from just having 3 parts. It just looks like a 3, and then it's combined with the 8-sided figure there. I think is fairly suggestive of 38. It's also pointing at 38 then. The back of it is pointing at that door.
Right.
Now, that's not really any stronger of a clue than like the 1-5, in oh, this is embarrassing. What room? What room has if no Eve?
Oh,
15.
30. 30 for Christ's
30,
sake.
30, yeah.
Jesus, this is getting sad over here. Yeah, that's not any stronger of an indication than the if no Eve pointing at the doors over there. But if no Eve, even we take at least to be pointing to that door, however incorrectly. You know, we have to discount it for some reason, but it clearly is pointing to over at 5 and 15.
Yeah.
I think the same deal here. I think this pretty plainly seems to be pointing towards 38, even if we discount that for another reason.
So you're just trying to gauge whether you think the red herring accounts for this satisfactorily or what?
Well, just what you think. I mean, that's how I feel about it. I don't know whether that it seems the same way to other people, but that's how I read the room. The room is pointing towards 38, but it's warning you that it's kind of taking you on a wild goose chase. I think the between 43 and 22, you're being directed here to stop. Not that Manson really expects you to sit in this room forever and stop reading the book, but essentially the message is you can't get out, you can't escape, so this is as far as you can get from 24, and this is the best place to sit down and spend your forever.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought that the word exotic, there's some strange reason for that. It contains all the letters for exit.
Right, which Fidelio also pointed out as part of his Room 1 theory.
Mm-hmm.
Well, do we want to look at the text?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, okay. All right. A gaudy room that reminded me of a theatrical backdrop. So that line's important for establishing that we should read these curtains as theater curtains, which is what tells us that they're red. Places like this are overdone for my taste, but some people like the exotic. Well, everyone is a critic. I don't know what to make of that overdone stuff. Unless it's just sort of making reference to how there's too much stuff in the room, like there's stuff in the room that doesn't serve a purpose. I don't know. I mean, the 4 signs that give you herring are in a way overdone because woman's jewelry is sufficient to give you herring,
Yeah.
you know.
In fact, I've always thought that the tail especially was a weird touch, because even though fish have tails, we don't really associate fish with their tails the way we associate, say, scorpions with their tails. So I also feel that because it was overdone.
I know what to think of it. Places like this are overdone. Over, period, done. You're done if you're in this room.
Whoa!
Oh,
Oh! It's not bad.
that's not terrible. Places like this are overdone. But some people like the exotic. Well, everyone's a critic. Now the next line we've got, it's true I am by my nature extremely critical. Bam, here we've got one of our big clues as to who the narrator is. Maybe it's completely misleading. Maybe it doesn't point us in the right direction at all. But at least here is one of the statements in the book where it's clearly just, here's a statement we're making about the narrator. Moreover, it's a statement that, in combination with some other stuff in the room, I think falsely is intended to heavily suggest King Minos as the guide. You've got the bull's tail. I mean, it's a bull's tail, right? The tail. I mean, it has to be a bull's tail, right?
I guess so. A donkey. I always thought it was a donkey.
Oh, yeah. Pin the
I
tail
also
on the donkey.
Well, because it always reminded me of Pin the Tail on the Donkey.
Yep, me too.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, in any case,
No,
I
look,
thought it was a bull's tail. Maybe, but that's maybe because I already had King Minos in mind. But King
no,
Minos.
now that I look at it, it doesn't. Well, some donkey. No, some donkey. Some of them are poofy like that, and some of them are a bit more.
Am I crazy, or does the thing attached to the chandelier look like the tail, like a second tail?
That's kind of nice.
And the shape of the upper part of it's not completely dissimilar to the scales either. You know what I mean? I mean, it's not totally similar, but you've got kind of the base and the 2 arms.
Possibly a ring.
Yeah.
A ring. No water. There's
Well,
no water there.
it does.
Those are those little bubble things around the. You got
There
the
is
little
sort of a
bubbles.
magnet for that. I don't know what to do with the H2O.
Yeah, there are little bubbles going all the way around the rim of the
Oh, there it is.
little water bubbles there.
It's a bit overdone, but
Well, everyone's a critic.
all right. Now listen. Just let me get through this. I don't care whether you like it being a bull tail or not. King Minos, well known for being one of the judges of the dead, or maybe they're the judge, or principal, whatever, one of the judges of the dead in Dante's Inferno. He talks about being critical. There's like the scales of justice in the room. There's a tail that to me looks like a bull's tail, which Minos didn't have a bull's tail. He's associated with bulls, and he also had a long tail in Dante's Inferno that he wrapped around himself in pronouncing his judgment. And the number of times it wrapped around himself was the level of hell that the person had to descend to. We've got the pitchfork here, which is suggestive of hell. So I sort of think this is intending to mislead us towards thinking it's clues towards Minos. I don't think these are reliably cluing us to Minos, but I think that's what those lines are about. Anyone else make anything out of that line?
No, that's some good work, Vince.
Well,
When did you come up with that?
oh, I don't know, probably 10 years ago. Next line. Although my life...
Well, let me just say one more thing about the it's true I am by nature. The only other thing I could say is I don't have a specific idea in mind, but I think that if somebody wanted to propose an identity for the guide who is someone who was like who comes from the wilderness, basically, you could stretch the I am by nature to mean like I was raised by nature, I am a product of nature, and you could try to half-ass that, but of course it wouldn't really account for the rest of the line. But I think somebody could. I'm just throwing that out there for somebody to try to turn that into a theory if they've got some person who was raised by wolves who they think the guide might be.
It's Artemis, goddess of the hunt.
Oh, there we go.
He does seem to have that connection to nature elsewhere, you know. In 32, he's talking about the animals in his kingdom and all that stuff. There's something to that.
That's right.
All right, next line. Although my life is a lonely one, I have not spared any of my guests the rigor of my judgment. Which still seems to be continuing in the same vein to me, pointing at Minos, but I think falsely. But that does have that interesting, although my life is a lonely one. And it's not clear whether that's a clue as to who the guide was, like helps us put together the identity, or if it's just a reference to his current role as the guide of this maze, you know?
I think it's a very peculiar sentence because the first phrase has nothing to do with the second one. It's not like being although my life is a lonely one, that being lonely has nothing to do with sparing his guests the rigor of his judgment, you know what I mean? Like those are not, they just don't seem connected.
The only connection I could draw between them is if he's saying, even though I'm lonely and I appreciate the company of these people,
Oh yeah.
I still judge.
I still do what I have to do to them.
Hmm.
But that's kind of a liberal reading of it to make sense. I agree, and that's something that happens a lot in the maze, where there are phrases stuck together that don't seem to literally make any sense, and usually that is a flag that you need to really pay attention to what's being said there.
Hmm.
Next line.
Since we're still on the identity in King Minos, is there any reason why you distrust all these King Minos clues other than the general red herring? It seems like if you accept that the red herring goes with 38, then it would be sort of consumed in that sense.
I think this points so strongly at Minos.
Or you just don't trust it for that reason? You think it's
Yeah, I think it's kind of over the top pointing to Minos compared to what you see everywhere else. Like if Minos is correct, this points at it so strongly that it's like, why would you have a hidden like riddle of the guide in here somewhere, and all this other cryptic stuff out there.
Hmm.
I mean, Minos is not a bad fit, though. He's one of the big three that you keep coming back to. I don't know. To be honest with you, lately I've really been thinking I really want Atlas to be the guide, but I can't square it with all the stuff that's said about the guide in here. It just seems like it would make sense. An atlas is like a guide to the world because it's a book of maps. The narrator is like the guide to the maze. The maze is associated with the world. The atlas is a book of maps of the world. It just seems like it'd be a good fit. All that, it's so close. Okay, I'm off subject, but really want it to be Atlas, but it just doesn't square with like his father being deceived and this stuff here, judgment, critical by nature, doesn't seem to fit with anything for Atlas.
Well, wasn't Atlas a Titan? Am I making that up?
Yeah, he was one of the Titans.
So his father was Kronos, right?
No, I can't remember who his father was. We talked about it before. It's not. Is it Iapetus? Is that the guy's? He is not. He's not part of the chain of beings that like had children, and then the children killed the father, and then those children had children, and those children killed their father. He's not part of that lineage, which would make it easy. But I could not find any connection between Atlas and his father being particularly deceived by anything. Yeah, his father was the Titan Iapetus, if I'm saying that right, and then his mother was either Asia or Clymene or Clymene. I don't know. I'm not saying any of these names correctly, but none of that seems to get us anywhere.
That's even obscure as in terms of internet, let alone in 1985.
Yeah.
Although perhaps not. I remember there being a lot better books out there on mythology back in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, I mean, if you knew you were trying to find information on Atlas, I don't think it would be hard to go to a library and get a book on Greek mythology that would tell you stuff. But you'd have to go get a book, certainly, but that's true of a lot of stuff in here. We all have our roles to play. Again, reinforces the theatrical theme of the room. I don't know if there's some kind of a pun we can make with roles. I don't have anything. We all have our roles to play. If that thing in the center is not a pawn, but some kind of game piece, maybe that uses dice, it does kind of look like the generic game piece that you use in a lot of board games, you know.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we all have our roles to play. Yeah, I like that.
But I got nowhere to go with that. This is not a bad place, really. One could spend quite some time here. That's, again, a line that I take to be indicating that you shouldn't leave this room. This is where you should stay. It's also, that's a line that I tied together with room 43 when we were talking about 43, where they talk about having two choices was predictably enough, neither good nor bad. And then if you come here, they mention this is not a bad place. Which I guess I don't know why that's a connection. It just seems to be some sort of a connection between the rooms. One can spend quite some time here. And you've got the stop sign, and you've got a place to sit down on top of the stop sign. Anything else from that line? And then the last line, however, in their restive way, the group moved on to...
I don't know, I feel like, again, quite, you could take the E out and get a quit from there, because there's really no other reason to have that word in that sentence. One could spend some time here, you know? Why do you have to say one could spend quite some time here?
Because he's emphasizing it's a lot of time. It's eternity.
Or he's hiding words within other words.
quit, over, done, exit, not the maze, the book. Restive is an odd word. I had to look it up. I didn't know the word restive. It means the opposite of what it sounds like it should mean.
Restless, sort of.
Yeah. It
It,
seems.
it makes me think that there's some kind of wordplay going on there with restive way, as in going the rest of the way. But I don't know what to do with that. That just seems like wordplay potential.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the rest in there is hard to ignore, but
Yeah.
that's probably largely because it was an unfamiliar word for me when I first saw it. Maybe, I mean, if he'd said restless in their restless way, I don't know. I think even if he'd said restless, I still would have said taking that rest, and sort of like genteel, gentile,
Yeah.
gentile.
Yeah.
Like just and like genteel, I want to put that together with the stop, like rest, stop, and say this is where you stop moving because you can only get closer to 24 from here.
Well, respectfully, let me submit that if you wanted to go genteel on this room, you could also just get the word red out of spared and call it a day.
Yeah, genteel has a lot to say about this room. This is a really important room in our initial interactions with Dave because this is part of where the King Herod stuff came from.
Why? Because there's a Jew in the sign?
I think that was part of it, but it's too complex to try to summarize shortly. It involves the sea theme and carnival poster in 38, and neither good nor bad meaning fair. Let's see. So you get Pharisee somewhere, and you combine that with some other stuff. Although I don't know whether he still sticks by that. King Herod wasn't one of the Pharisees, so that seems strange to me to make that connection. Anyway, he read a lot into this, and his statements about King Herod kind of became like our symbol of sort of going down the wrong path with things. When we make reference to King Herod, that's what we were talking about. But an interesting read if you go to Gentile's website and take a look at what he has to say about this room. This is one that he goes pretty deep with in his connections. Oh, every room's like that. I guess it's not particularly different. It's kind of funny. And this is one he got an answer back from Manson on too. Or Manson wrote him an email back and said no.
You nixed the Pharisee solution? That's sad.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dave.
All right. So that's all I've got for the text. And I think that might be all we have for the room. Anyone have anything else they want to say about the room?
It's a very lovely room.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I kind of want to have a chandelier like that. I could probably put one here behind my maze poster.
We haven't talked about the patterns toward the ceiling, but I'm not sure if there's anything to say there. They just seem like filler.
They are. Those are the kind of thing that we would frequently find something in, that bears the shape of the correct door or something. But yeah, I'm on the same page as you. I tried to find something in them, and I don't see it.
Well, let me say this. My girlfriend was taking a look at this room, and she thought that there was a bit of a zodiac thing going on because she saw the scales. She saw the tail, which she thought was a lion's tail. And she was getting Aquarius out of the H2O. And I'm now looking at it, and I'm looking at the pattern toward the top, and it looks like, you know how the Aquarius symbol is a zigzag line and another zigzag line. And I see in each of these panels, I see a zigzag line and a bunch of waves. So there could be some kind of Aquarius thing going on there. But I don't know if I get you, but it does look sort of watery.
I tried going down the zodiac path before. I couldn't get anything out of it. I think the tail maybe would be the tail of Sagittarius. Could be, or a bull tail, obviously. Jesus Christ, I already said it's a bull tail. So we'll call that.
Oh, you could go even more basic than that. You could say that it could even be something like 3 arrows pointing upwards or 3 upside down V's that could be 5s or something like that. You could come out with a bunch of shit for this.
It does have the 3 triangles, which we could take to be a 3. Can we get 8 out of it anyway? Or 4?
Not that I can see. There's sort of a G shape on the left hand one, closest to the furthest from us, but like on the most left hand side. But that's neither here nor there. They sort of look like waves, like you said, or fish or waves, and then. But they do look like V's. To me, they look like upside down V's with a slight serif.
On the very edges of those designs, there are like 3 little nubs sticking out that look like maybe a flower coming in from the side.
Yeah.
There's another 3. And there are 8 of those on the page. Because you can see 1 on each side on the 3 on the middle, and then just 1 on the far right, 1 and 1 on the far left. So there are 8 3-petaled flower nub things.
There we go. That's it. That's the one White Raven has been looking for.
The other thing that you mentioned too is if we're going to designate this room as from a card suite or card suit, we could do diamonds because of the patterns inside. Rather outside the numbers of the rooms. There's sort of a
there's a diamond shape. And there's and the panels themselves, which Vince saw as 3s and 8s, resemble clubs. I think I might have said spades earlier in the episode, but they're clubs.
All those do look like clubs.
Yeah, they look a lot like clubs.
Clubs, diamonds.
What did we have in the tarot room? Did we have the other ones? Did we have? Yeah, we had heart and spade in 27 over the doors, and now we have clubs and diamonds.
That's not. I mean, there's something there. Why are there diamonds all over that? Those do look like clubs, for Christ's sake. I don't know, man. Anything you can't figure out in this room, you can just say it's a red herring and act like it's part of the solution.
No. You can make. I'll tell you this much. You can say that diamonds have 4 sides, and clubs have 3 petals or 3 circles, right? So 4 plus 3.
Yeah.
But then so that doesn't really help you.
Well, help. I don't know. Or the diamonds are 4-sided, the triangles are 3-sided. There's a 4 and a 3 triangles. Yeah, I don't know.
You know, but then you got the whole main theme of the thing is the 8, the stop sign.
Yeah, I
3. No, sorry, I'm just digressing here with the 4-sided diamonds.
No. I mean, I think
definitely a herring.
Well, or nothing at all. I don't even know that it was intended as a herring, but yeah, I mean, who knows? He's got to put something on the wall, whether the decor is special and meant to mean something, or just what he filled it in with. Who knows? I got nothing left. I don't know. How do you guys feel about this room and what we know about it? Do you think we've got the room pretty much figured out?
I'm sure there's maybe 1 or 2 solutions that we haven't thought up, but I think we've pretty much sucked this one dry.
I feel pretty good about it. How do you feel, Beals?
I feel like you're the specifically tying the red herring with 38 is really good, and I don't know why that's not acknowledged on the Abyss. The Abyss, we have 5 stars for this on the Abyss, but it only says, oh, look at all these things that go together to say red herring, but that's not actually defined in relation to either door or in relation to the room at all. It's just, it's oh, here's the red herring. And I think that the 38 stuff is legitimate.
Yeah, and White Raven doesn't really like. I mean, he acknowledges it's probably correct. He's put it on the Abyss, but he doesn't really like the red herring solution to this room, which is interesting to me just in terms of how different people are in looking at the solutions. Like, we all look at 34, and we were like so flabbergasted when we heard that solution, and it was like the sky was falling. But that was one of his. He loved that solution. That's the one that he went to Manson with and said, I thought this was great, and then this room, the solution to it, like I think is fairly reasonable and elegant. Like I don't look at it and say, oh, this is ridiculous. No one should have been expected to figure this out, and we really have to mash crap together to get it. I feel like once you see her ring out of woman's jewelry, which I think has to be correct, I think that's got to be intended. I think then you're looking for red herring, and then I think the clues to red in the room are solid. I think red herring, at least, is we're on solid footing with that. I think. Whether the 38 part, the 38 part seems pretty solid to me too. That trident and octagon are pointing to 38. But anyway, what's interesting is that none of us got that answer to 34. White Raven did get the answer, and that answer makes sense to him, and he loves that answer. We didn't get that answer, and we hate it. We think it's stupid. White Raven didn't get this answer, and he doesn't like this answer. But the people who got the answer think, oh, this is great, this is elegant, what a good answer. Yeah. And I don't know whether it's just our different outlook on what's a good solution, or maybe figuring out a solution sort of biases you towards thinking that it's therefore a good solution, On the other hand, if it came into your mind and you thought of it and said it, then I guess you're probably predisposed to think that it's reasonable anyway.
Agreed. I also think that I've sort of taken a different approach to looking at rooms in the last couple months, just in the sense that, rooms that I had originally been a big fan of, like 34, I sort of have not done it for me anymore, just in terms of the solution. But ones like this, even though they're in the trap, I think it's a lot more elegant. I think that sort of looking at it that way is a lot more optimistic.
Wait, what do you mean? Looking at it, what way is more optimistic?
Well, sort of, judging and liking a room by the elegance of its answers rather than first impressions. Like at the first, I thought that 34 was going to be I thought it was going to be like a grand slam, right? And then it turned out to be what it was, and that sort of killed it for me. And I still think that there's rooms out there with potential that we haven't cracked at all, that have some really wonderful solutions to them that we just don't even know about.
Yeah, I agree. Think about Room 22, which went... Room 22 doesn't strike me as being incredibly difficult or unfair once you know the solution. That sounds like a dumb thing to say. If you know the solution, yeah, it's not going to seem incredibly difficult or unfair. But I guess I just mean, you can only look at these things in hindsight. That doesn't stick out to me as being this impossible room in the maze. There are a lot of other ones that we're just totally clueless on.
Yeah, what you're describing is the thing where, like, room 1 is the archetypal fair puzzle where you figure it out, and yet you still know, okay, you know what, that's reasonable, people could understand that. And all the rest of the rooms are on a spectrum relative to that, and I think you're right in saying that the 38 red herring solution is not at a bad end of the spectrum. It's not too far out.
Yeah, 22 seems a lot closer to room 1 than room 45, for instance. No, Jesus, now I can't remember why I was pointing that out. Oh, I'm pointing that out to say, but, years, decades went by without anyone on the internet, at least, putting forward that solution for room 22. And that's the one room that White Raven didn't get a solution for that what he felt was acceptable to him.
But is that to say that he came up with the same solutions that we did, or
for 22?
Yeah, or that he came up with different solutions that he hasn't mentioned yet, and he just doesn't like ours. Like, there's still a lot out there. Still a lot.
No. Well, he's already 5-starred it on the Abyss, so he's accepted our solutions. I would assume, I can't remember whether he said explicitly, I assume he came up with something for 22. In fact, I think he said he came up with something for 22, and it was one of the few things that he ran by Manson to say, "Am I on the right page here at all with this?" And Manson said, "No, you're not." He hasn't said what it was, but whatever it was that he came up for, it was explained as being incorrect by Manson himself. Although it'd still be interesting to know what that was. Even wrong solutions can be really interesting. But I guess the point is, White Raven is obviously very good at maze, and the people who figured out all the other hard things about maze didn't figure out room 22. So room 22 is one of those rooms that it reminds you that the rooms you don't like or the rooms that seem impossible, there could be something that'll just click, and it's not even that difficult or obscure or anything. You're just not looking at it the right way. I mean, with room 22, really all it took was seeing her ring, that's actually on the Abyss credited to Ben. That's Ben's solution. But once you see that, the rest of it falls into place. Maybe the same is true for, I don't know, take your pick, whatever room, room 8 or whatever, that we seem to be totally...
Room 18, where White Raven suggests that there's one big riddle that's supposed to tie all these elements together that hasn't been for us yet.
Yeah.
Strong idea, the music room, where we seem to have strong ideas about a lot of the individual elements. Apparently there's something that needs to fit there.
But I'd number this among the solutions that I like, where it seems like the whole room is unified in cluing. I mean, there are different things cluing things, but like you could see someone coming up with the idea for this room. What's your idea? Well, I'm going to let them know that they're on the wrong path. I'm going to clue that it's a red herring. I'm going to point them towards a room, but going to that room doesn't really help them out. So what we're going to do is clue herring, and we're going to clue red. There's some red stuff in the room to stop. So whatever. It follows naturally from a theme that you would develop. It's not kind of like there are 20 objects in the room, and you're just saying, well, if you look at these two together, they kind of form an arrow pointing towards this door, and this one's kind of shaped like a 7, Which, that kind of stuff makes it hard for me to believe that that's really what was going on in Manson's mind. Because it would essentially mean that he just sat down with a blank page and started drawing shit and said, well, here, I'll draw a candlestick next to this thermometer, and that's going to be a 7, and then I'm going to draw a spider that has 9 legs and whatever. I think the rooms that we have good solutions on, always seem to revolve around some theme or idea that kind of unifies them. And until we get those for a room, I don't really consider a room done, So I think I stopped having anything to say about room 22 about 20 minutes ago. Anyone have anything else to add about room 22 or to blather on about for 20 minutes if you approve of my methods?
No, I liked your spiel, but I think this episode is starting to get a little overdone for my taste.
Yeah, everyone's a critic. All right. Do we want to try to pick the episode now, or we'll do it in between episodes? I mean, the room. Pick the room now, or do it in between episodes?
Maybe we just do it in between.
Sometimes it's nice to create a pause. Anyway. When we announce what room we're doing, then Thale gets, the gears going.
Well, we got to create the buzz.
Should we give him a fake room?
Yeah, we
give him a real room. I'll tell you what room we're going to do. I'm telling you right now. We're going to do room 3.
We haven't done it?
The backwards.
You haven't done room 3 already?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So we're going to reverse the entire video and have the whole thing backwards, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The whole podcast, it's like that movie Memento, where there's a version where they actually do it in sequence.
Oh, that ruins the point. We could do it though. We could split it up like that.
It's possible. You could spend quite some time here. Okay, well, without further ado, gentle viewers, number 3.
See you next time.
Arrivederci.